What is going on? I want to welcome you from half court today, being joined by my guy, one of the best guests I've had on this podcast. He and I
Let's
have been talking about
go.
doing this for a little while. He is the co-host of the Woodward Sports Morning Show, and he is the better looking half of the morning show. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
I was
just
gonna say
kidding. There we
that's what I
go.
love about this. I'm
Hey,
so excited to be here just for that
yeah,
statement.
Jeffrey Iafrate. Jeffrey, how's it going, man? Jeff, you prefer Jeff or Jeffrey? What do you
You
do
can
you have a
you can call me
preference?
Jeff.
All
Jeff will
right.
work with me.
All right,
Number one,
perfect.
thank you for letting me be here, man. I'm excited. We got a lot to talk about. Obviously, the timing of this is honestly couldn't be perfect. You got a day before the trade deadline
Yeah.
tomorrow, I believe 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and man, I can't wait. We got a lot to cover.
Oh my goodness, man. There is so much to talk about. Before we get into the meat and potatoes, that is everything happening with the trade deadline. First, what would you tell people about yourself? And for those who for some reason haven't heard of Woodward Sports yet, because for one, I'm also part of Woodward Sports. We're co-workers, which
Surprise.
yeah, exact surprise. Yeah. What would you tell people about yourself and Woodward Sports in general?
Well, I'll start with Woodward Sports, honestly. And I've said this, I was on my buddy Abe's podcast and he asked me a similar question. With Woodward, I think it's the new age of especially sports nowadays. Like
Yeah.
you got guys like me, even before Woodward, big podcast guy. I mean, everyone knows obviously 97.1 and what they've been in Detroit. But for me,
Yeah.
like radio was dying and it is
Yeah.
still kind of is at the same time. Now, radio's still relevant in a lot of the US, but in terms of like good quality videos, you can find it anywhere. You got Pat McAfee, you got now Woodward Sports. You can check it out on YouTube, Twitter, all social media platforms. And
Mhm.
now I think this, especially the social media day and age, everything's so accessible. So that's what makes Woodward Sports so gay. I tell everybody, like, honestly, there's no excuse not to watch it because you got the
Yeah.
app. It's on YouTube. It's on pretty much every platform. Now we're on radio in parts around Michigan. So it's awesome. It's been a lot of fun. And for me personally, it's been tough. Now that was a trick question because I don't really talk about myself too much. But with me, I don't know. I like to think of it as like I've gotten a great opportunity, especially a lot of people at Woodward. Stick, Chad, Joey, Adam, all those guys believe in me a lot, and they've given me a ton of great opportunities. Now hosting with Adam,
Yeah.
having that experience, and I've gained so much experience over the last year than honestly I could have ever gained anywhere else. So I'm incredibly excited to see where this goes and continue to provide great content for Woodward
Yeah.
Sports and the Morning Woodward Show because me and Adam have some heated arguments on there, but I love it. It's so
Dude,
much fun, man.
your guys' chemistry is so fun to watch just because, I obviously there's the infamous Matt Stafford made it to the Super Bowl episode where he brings
Yeah.
in the dancers and you're just looking like you're looking like Paulie D, just going like this.
Yeah.
Those guys dancing in the background. Oh my
No,
gosh, man.
and funny story about that day, I honestly did not know what I was walking into until I
Yeah.
walked. Because we mentioned, listen, we joke behind the scenes. We're like, Adam's like, I'm getting strippers, I'm going all out. I'm like, listen, I don't know what is coming through those doors. So I walk in. I had my shades. I'm like, listen, I'm keeping it cool. I got my shades on.
Yeah.
Me and Adam talked about doing a bunch of different things, but I see Adam, man, and he's got the hookah machine. He's dressed to the nines. He's got the goat
Mhm.
mask. And I thought to myself, I'm like, this is gonna be iconic. And I saw the guys come in, all the dancers. And
Yeah.
at first, you're seeing guys come through the door, and my first instinct is, please don't be male strippers. I don't know why that was the first thing. I'm like, I don't know
I mean,
why.
hey, the first thing he said was strippers, so that would be where my head went too, dude. I get it.
I was absolutely terrified. I waited. I came in, and suddenly Adam, he's talking to them. They're all dancers. I'm like, oh, I don't know where this is going. Adam goes, all right, I'm giving you this Bluetooth speaker. You play this song when I'm my cue, and I'm sitting there. I look at the song. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be great. And I see these
Uh-huh.
guys just killing it behind me. It was a lot of fun. I was sitting there. I posted the video on my social media, just so awkward. I'm like,
Yeah.
that one guy just kind of blending in the background, like, okay, yeah. And then Adam's doing they're all, hey,
Yeah,
he's hitting the hookah machine. I'm
He's
like,
got the full blown mask on and everything too, and you
I know
just
the
have to sit
mask.
there and like my favorite part, you dance, but also there's just the part where you're just like
Yeah.
just watching and just
It-
don't know what to do.
I'm like, I didn't get like a duration on this. How long is this going on? I'm like, all right, keep dancing. Like
yeah,
I'm going till everyone stops, I guess.
Yeah. Man, it's the thing of what's gonna happen if he actually wins the Super Bowl, because it started with a cigar and then it went to a hookah. Like, is Adam just gonna bring a full blown crack pipe into the
this-
studio?
This man, and I quote Adam, he goes, I cannot wait till Monday. And he goes, not even for just, obviously it's going to be exciting, the Super Bowl, but he said, if Stafford wins, He goes, I may burn down this studio. And
Oh,
I looked at him
it's
and I'm
highly
like,
possible.
no. And listen, that might have been incriminating on him to say that, but at the same time, I laughed my ass off. I'm like, listen, we're planning something big. So looking forward to it Monday. I don't know what we got, but we've been going through so many ideas. It's going to get crazier and crazier than last time, hopefully.
Well, I absolutely love that, man. Yeah, if you haven't tuned in yet, be sure to check out the Woodward Sports channel because there is a lot of awesome content on there, even including I got to go on last week with Darren McCarty and Easy.
We got to get you
on. To talk some. Yeah, man, I'm excited. I'd love to come on. Yeah, anytime, man. I would love to make that happen. Whether it's from here, from afar, or I want to drive out.
Come in.
Yeah, I want to drive into the studio soon too. I'm actually going on Friday to see Pistons Hornets at the LCA. So I was thinking maybe before that I could always swing in and just come meet people. But yeah, man.
So where are you from? Where do you drive from?
Yeah, I'm from the Grand Rapids area. So
sweet. Okay.
Yes, yep. So have you ever heard of the Grand Castle? I live in a castle.
No, I have not.
I literally live in a castle. It looks like the castle. It literally looks. I'm full out doxing myself right now, but I live in Lord Farquaad's castle over on the west side of the state. So that's where I'm at.
Imagine telling people your address. It's kind of a badass thing to say. Like I live in a castle.
It's like I live in a castle.
Grand Rapids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not the White Castle. Not the White Castle.
Dude, someone said that they should have a White Castle here, and I'm like, but I don't want to smell that like anywhere near where I sleep. No. So that's just me personally.
From a guy who has a White Castle near him, I agree with you there. I'd advise you. Do not trust anything related there.
Yeah, I've never eaten there. I think I'm good. I don't think we got to do that. But you know what we are going to do today? We're going to talk basketball because this is From Half Court. Reach every week. Myself and my guy, normally Troy, sometimes some special guests. We get to sit down, talk all things NBA basketball. If you'd like that, be sure to like the podcast, subscribe to the channel. You can find it where all your heart desires, whatever podcast service you'd like. Be sure to share with your friend and comment below and join the conversation here from Half Court. But with that, Jeff, we talked about it. It's the trade deadline. That's all there is to talk about right now because the NBA is an absolute shambles. So first, I kind of want to start with this. I was talking about this with my buddy Troy when we were recording earlier, talking about the trade deadline. And we both kind of talked about what our favorite trade deadline moments of all time are. And so obviously there's quite a list of them, right? So obviously the Detroit Pistons one, the Rashid coming in 03-04 when he was traded twice in one deadline.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I will never forget when I found out Andre Drummond was traded too, especially because it was so out of the blue.
For a second round pick.
Yeah. Well, especially because like when Ed Stefanski was the head of when he was the head of our front office, I don't know about you, but I had no clue what our direction was. Like he was just there.
Absolutely not.
And it was obvious that they were assessing things and that they were coming up with a plan. You just didn't know what that was, right? So when
it was constant assessing.
Yes,
assessing.
Exactly. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm glad you're assessing, but like, can we hire a general manager, please? Like, is that something we can do?
Thank God for Troy Weaver.
Yeah, exactly. And Troy Weaver, we trust. But Jeff, what about you? What's a NBA trade deadline memory that sticks out to you?
It would honestly probably be a couple of them. Obviously, personally, I was about 4 years old when we won the NBA championship. So that time for me, like obviously my family's a big basketball family. So Rashid coming to the Pistons for me personally, that moment was big. But all time, and just to be funny, it would have to be. It's funny you brought it up, the Andre Drummond, because I just saw Pistons Talk on Twitter talking about it. Yeah, and it's crazy to think what Andre Drummond was and what he grew into, and then towards the end when teams knew, like, listen, well, here's a second round pick, give us Andre Drummond. Like that to me is probably my favorite moment because it showed maybe we waited a little too long to trade Andre, and number two, it's crazy to think second round pick, and now he's a backup center in Philly. So he's the best. Crazy. He's the best backup center in the league, but at the same time, he's way too good to be a backup center. That's like the duality of Drummond. I'll never forget. There was a basketball scout at one point that said about Andre Drummond, he can go out there and he can score 20 points and he can get you 20 boards every single game and still have no effect on the game whatsoever. And if that's not the most damning quote from a scout I've ever heard in my entire life, I don't know what is. That's savage. That's a savage quote. And another thing with Drummond is, oh God, it frustrates me because I love, obviously, Drummond when he was here, You question things maybe off the court and even
Yeah.
on the court, like you said, his effectiveness just on
Yeah.
the basketball court. But I always have this belief, and you're seeing it now with Russell Westbrook. If you can't work with LeBron, something's off.
If
And
you
we saw
can't,
Drummond
yeah.
go to the Lakers, and I legitimately thought maybe they have a big that, and especially Drummond, who finally found his match, a
Mm-hmm.
guy who's going to get him in good spots.
Mm-hmm.
No, the Lakers were like, listen, kick rocks. I'll see you later. Here's DeAndre Jordan.
Well, it's like, you know how we feel so vindicated as Matthew Stafford fans because we knew what he could do if he was in the right situation. It's almost the opposite effect where I felt so
Complete.
vindicated about Andre Drummond because I knew what was going to happen when the light shined brightest, because I've watched him,
100%.
like, especially like I'll never forget the game 3 or game 4 at LCA when Chauncey Billups was calling him out on his effort on broadcast on national television during the most important moment of your franchise. Like, this is okay. You have Blake Griffin on your squad. He's playing on a bum knee and you can't even get a playoff win because you're not out there hustling on defense. Like,
I know.
what is wrong with you?
You know what's crazy to think when Blake Griffin first got traded to the Pistons, I just remember having this discussion with one of my buddies, who's a big Pistons fan. He's like, and at the time, I believe it was Cousins and Anthony Davis that were just together as well.
Yeah,
like, this front court, man, like we got a serious front court. And you saw Blake go out there and literally have a career year. And then you just kind of saw Drummond. More and more games you watch, you're like, yeah. This ain't going to last more than a couple of years, if not a year or two, because the fit didn't make a whole lot of – I mean, at first they were like, great, Blake's a great passer, maybe Drummond. No, the effectiveness never changed for Drummond his entire career. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
I'll never forget when Blake Griffin got traded to the Pistons. That's probably the craziest one for me when I think of, like, that just was so out of left field. No reports suggested the Pistons were even – yeah. And obviously no one thought that Blake Griffin was going to be traded because there was the thing a few months before where obviously it's the told story where they did the jersey retirement ceremony. They said they wanted to be a Clipper for life. And then 3 months later, they sent him to Detroit, which is, the most
epitome of
the epitome of the backstab. Like, hey, you're going to be in Sunshine, California for the rest of your career. 3 months later, hey, we're sending you to Detroit.
Get a winter coat. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Good luck out there.
Yeah. Get a good coat, man.
That when Blake got traded, I remember I was at my girlfriend still to this day, and at the time I remember sitting on her bed and I was looking at my phone. I saw the update for Blake Griffin coming to the Pistons, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, is this because you see a lot of fake Woj accounts. You got Andre Stands out there. I never know. Like, so I check it. I'm like, yeah, this is real. Like Blake's. And I remember just shocked, and you kind of felt for Blake in a way because, like you said, like I immediately hate just push to the Clippers for like the next 2 seasons. Just like, you sons of bitches. Like, that was my first. But then at the end of the day, it's like, all right, it is a business. And now I start to realize that even more. And it's honestly like Blake Griffin, when he signed that Supermax, I mean, when you took his contract, I wasn't excited. But I mean, if you tell a guy you're going to be Clipper for life, man, I don't care that Blake didn't shake your hand, Steve Ballmer. I'm okay with it. All right. Walk right past him.
Yeah. It's the consequences of doing business. If you're going to use personal feelings in order to sway somebody to come to your franchise as a business tactic, you should not be upset when they don't want to have a personal relationship with you. Because
100%.
Yeah. I remember, so I worked at a hospital at the time, and I was sitting in an office, like answering phones, all that kind of stuff. And I just feel my phone buzz. And it, like, I was waiting for it to stop because we were busy. Like, we had things going on. And then eventually when I had a moment to look down, I just see I had like 60 texts, like all my friends, like Sean, because they knew that I would be the one to freak out. And I see Blake Griffin's a Detroit Piston, and I'm just, what the hell? Yeah, man.
It was your first taste of like real, star power. Like, I mean, it was an all-star, former all-star. You're like, all right, cool. Like, I'm hype. I was hype. Everyone was hype.
I'm 24. Like Grant Hill was a Piston before I was like cognizant to really remember that. You know what I mean? So, this was the first true star we had on our team. So, it's, obviously now we have Cade Cunningham, so I feel pretty fine about that. But, at the time it was absolutely surreal. And there's a lot of teams that are coming with that reality right now because there's been a lot of moves, Jeff, that have happened already. So I think the first big domino to drop was the Karis LeVert trade to Cleveland, which, by the way, how about Cleveland? I mean, I had them being just as bad, if not a little better than us going into this year. And now
Mhm.
They are a top 3, top 4 seed in the East, and they're looking to be a legitimate contender. They have the same record as the Chicago Bulls and have 2 less wins than the Milwaukee Bucks do right now. So
Says a
Jeff,
lot
what
about Bickerstaff. He's done a good job this year, man.
Oh,
Holy
yeah,
man.
he's done a heck of a job. And also just it says a lot that, we counted out a lot of those players, especially like
Mhm.
Darius Garland. I'm just going to say straight up, I didn't think Darius Garland was going to be anything in this league. I thought Colin Sexton was going to be better, which I mean, look how that turned out. But,
Yep.
on your end, like what's your impression of the Karis LeVert move, and what do you think about this Cleveland team going forward?
I like it. I mean, it shows to me that Cleveland, they understand they have a chance. I mean, listen, I don't think Cleveland's going to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, but
Right.
they feel they have a good enough team to at least go out there and have a chance. And obviously with the
Mhm.
Sexton's injury, Colin Sexton to me, like I've always loved, that was the young bull. Like I've been watching him for so
Mhm.
long, just in high school, and with Darius Garland, those two in that backcourt, Cleveland never made a lot of sense to me. Like
Yeah.
they had 15 centers on the roster. They
Yeah.
had they had Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. They had all those guys, and they had
Yeah.
multiple guys. They had Kevin Love. Like they have 14 power forwards, Laurie Markkinen.
Yeah. They start
So
3 7-footers.
only team I know that actually did that successfully. I saw Laurie Markkinen playing small forward like a week ago, and I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know how the hell you guys are doing it, but keep doing it. And they've done a great job this year. I think
Mhm.
trading for Karis LeVert, yeah, you give up Ricky, you gave up that first round pick. I believe it's protected if I'm not mistaken. But I love it, man. Karis is going to come in and help them right away, and you kind of see the direction the Pacers are going. I mean, they're moving towards a rebuild.
Mhm.
Who knows what they'll do, and we'll get into it. I'm not going to get it too much, but with Buddy Hield coming in now, but
Mhm.
the Pacers know where they're at. They want to restart and at least have a chance. And now Cleveland going all in. I'll see what they do. But Evan Mobley, man, and those guys,
Yeah.
they got talent. I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
going to admit it now, man. It's Cleveland, and you haven't seen anything really since LeBron was there
Yeah.
and after. But I got to give them credit. They're building a young core, great young
Oh,
core.
for sure. And this is the first time that the Cleveland Cavaliers have seen true significant success outside
Mm-hmm.
of LeBron James. So for them, this is a big moment to say that no, we do have the pieces in house to go and make a
Right.
move and to do some things. And I think with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, that tandem works so well together
It
because
does.
I think if Evan Mobley didn't have the guard like ball handling skills and the jump shot that he had, that tandem doesn't work nearly as well as
Mm-hmm.
it does. But the fact that he does, but then in addition to that, they're both of them have elite rim protecting abilities. It's almost like having 2 Rudy Goberts in the post, and it's
Yeah.
kind of unfair. So,
Yeah. And you got one Rudy Gobert who can space the floor and hit threes. Like it
yeah,
doesn't make sense.
yeah, exactly. So I'm not saying they're going to be an Eastern Conference Finals team, but they're sure as heck a contender because
Yeah.
if the playoffs were to start today and they were to get to like that second round, like let's just say the top 4 seeds were to get there, right? It would be Miami, Milwaukee, Chicago, and Cleveland. So they play Miami in that semifinals, and obviously Miami, heck of a team, they're playing really well right now, but I don't think that's a favorable matchup for Miami with how small they are. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like that.
No, 100%. I mean, you have Bam Adebayo. He's 6'9", great, obviously defender, but
Yeah.
that's overwhelming. Like you have
Yeah.
two, like you said, legit 7-footers who can block shots. I like what Miami Heat did with Kyle Lowry. I think he was a great addition, but health
Yeah.
has been a question with the Miami Heat. But no doubt, even with the guys they've had, Miami is a well-coached team. So and so is Cleveland. Not taking
Yeah.
anything away from Cleveland, but Eric Spoelstra, I trust him in a playoff series. But at the same time, like you said, it's not a favorable matchup. Like Darius Garland,
Mhm.
now it's going to hurt him. Now benefiting with Karis LeVert because now you got a guy in the backcourt who can make plays with you.
Right.
But that's what I'm excited to see the most. Like Karis LeVert, you got Darius Garland. Who knows, man? Like come
Yeah.
to playoff time, just get buckets, and they
Yeah,
got guys
well-
who can. So
Well, and the terrifying thing is the fact that Cleveland was able to make that trade, and I was expecting to see Colin Sexton's name in there. It's not. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
Colin Sexton, he has the torn meniscus injury. He's out for the season, dealing with injuries, so therefore kind of hard to trade when he is injured. However, I was expecting him to still be in trade packages. So, like, the fact that they can probably use that in the summer to trade
Mhm.
for something else. I mean, he's going to be a restricted free agent. They could probably use that as a sign and trade. Like, we might not see the best version of this Cleveland team right now, as good as
Yeah.
they are. And that is terrifying.
And I'm also terrified, and talked to, Easy the other day about it too with Evan Mobley and Cade Cunningham. And I think we just looked back at the, NBA draft, and I said to Easy, and he agreed, and he said the exact same thing. If I had to do a redraft and you told me I had to pick someone other than Cade, I'm going Evan Mobley.
Oh, for sure.
I don't give a damn. And a lot of people would agree with that. Obviously, now you look at him, he's more of a complete player. I'm terrified of his ceiling, man. Like that, he has a legitimate Anthony Davis as like Chris Bosh as like those types of players ceiling, as long as he can stay healthy, and he's been able to do so. This year, like you said, they are overachieving in a way, but Darius, first time All-Star, you have Evan Mobley, who's going to be a future All-Star, Jarrett Allen, who's still younger, like he's pretty much reached, I think, his ceiling in terms of defensively, and he's always solid. Colin Sexton might be back, and JB's a great coach, so like I agree with you 100%. We don't know their ceiling because they're only getting better individually.
Yeah, exactly. And Karis LeVert, people forget, man, he's a bucket. Obviously the only thing with him is health stuff. However, a lot of the health things that he dealt with have all just been freak accidents or insane things, like like the cancer scare last year, the crazy fracture he had when he was a part of the Nets. I mean, he's had such an unorthodox career just because of the health issues that he specifically has dealt with. But if he can be active and stay on the court, we've seen him this year take over games and be a great player. So, if Darius Garland's off, to have a guy like him as your running mate in the backcourt, I think that's terrifying. That could potentially be one of the best backcourts in the league going forward someday, to pair with this terrifying front court that they have too. It's unreal.
And like you said, I think another benefit to having a guy like Karis LeVert is he can create for others, and it's going to help guys like Darius Garland, because we have so many bigs like that, 7-footers. You need guys who can make plays, like without giving the ball to Evan Mobley and saying, "All right, get us a bucket." And Darius Garland, Karis LeVert, I like that backcourt a lot. Yeah, and I'm excited to see what they do with Karis, whether he, next year maybe he turns into that 6-man for him and increases their bench output, or that he just walks away or they trade him. Whatever it is, great trade, man. They gave up Ricky Rubio, a protected first, in like a second or something like that. Like in the long run, they're buying in. I'm good with it, man.
And it was it's the perfect type of trade too, because it's both a guy that helps you get better now, but at the same time can grow and blossom along the core that you have going forward. So I think Karis LeVert's finally found like a home, like a place that he can actually stay. So I think that's only going to be good things for them. And speaking of backcourts being united, how about the one that was broken up yesterday as well, with CJ McCollum and Damien Lillard? Finally, after all these years. Now, Jeff, I don't know about you. The Portland Trailblazers, to me, have been the most puzzling team so far, as far as the trade deadline has gone, because it's pretty clear that they're trying to position themselves in a way where they can clear some cap space, and it looks like they want to go and get some guys to get around Damian Lillard in the summer. But I'm sorry, what's the name of that key free agent that signed with Portland that one time? Oh, I can't think of any because there hasn't been. So Jeff, my question, first of all, the CJ McCollum trade, that's probably the most important one, right? He was sent to the New Orleans Pelicans in exchange for Josh Hart. And then they got Alexander Walker as well, who then they traded right after pretty much getting him.
Yeah.
And then like, I think a second round pick or a first, like a first round pick. What were your thoughts on that trade? Do you think they got what they could have for CJ McCollum? And what do you think Portland's trying to do here? What do you think of their game plan?
It's always been funny, and you mentioned Portland and how puzzling they've been by the trade deadline. Honestly, it's been puzzling to watch the Trailblazers over the last couple of years in general. Like when they make the playoffs, I've never understood the Portland Trailblazers, whether you're going all in or, like, for example, I never thought the Damian Lillard CJ backcourt would work. Like, you have two guys that are very similar players. Like, they both don't play defense. They're great playmakers. They can space the floor. So ideally, from a fan's perspective, you're like, wow, that's entertaining basketball. I got two guys, and maybe from a GM, like you're playing 2K, you're like, all right, two guys, they can space the floor, they can shoot, backcourt's awesome. But in the NBA, like, they never had any real success. They made the Western Conference Finals, and that was really it. They got swept by the Warriors. So at the same time, I like this trade for both sides. I think going to New Orleans, great. Like you have a pretty good core there. Ingram, you have Zion whenever he returns and decides to just get into basketball shape, whatever he's doing. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
Haven't
get into
seen him all
basketball
season.
shape and not be the shape of a basketball.
No, and I'm trying to figure out with Zion. I don't want to go too off track, but
Yeah.
I'm missing watching Zion. Like, I really
Me
am.
too,
And I
man.
think New Orleans, now getting CJ, you had a guard who can ball handle, who can
Yeah.
space the floor, and with that team, it fits. You have Ingram. Not the greatest 3-point shooter, but I got to watch him in person against the Pistons, tore us apart. Hell of a playmaker. And now with the trade they made, I like it for New Orleans. For Portland, the only problem I have with it is, why would you trade Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who I thought is a great piece coming to your team, whether it's off the bench, whatever it is. He's a very young, talented guard. I think he's averaging like a career high in points this year. So that didn't make a whole lot of sense to immediately deal him to Utah. So Portland, well, I mean, we could use a whole episode to discuss the dysfunction over there. I don't know. Chauncey Billups, thank God he has
in a position to fail. He's in a position to fail.
He is. Yeah. He is. 100%. And so from Portland's side, it's whatever to me. I mean, it's Portland Trailblazers. I don't know how it'll work out. If they're able to get a free agent, we'll look back on it and say, well, it made sense. Or maybe they'll make a deal, another deal, maybe for Jeremy Grant, which maybe we'll get into.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's like, good for New Orleans. For Portland, it's like, you could have done a little better. You probably could have done a little better.
You think I'm going to have you on a trade deadline pod and not talk about Jeremy Grant? Come on now. We're definitely going to get there. But
no, I know. I can't wait, man. We got to freaking dig into this.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on?
Dude, there's so much to dig into. So, all right. So again, the full deal was, the Pelicans sent Josh Hart, Thomas Satoransky, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's now on the Jazz, and Didi Louzada. And they also sent a protected first-round pick, so a lottery protected first-round pick, and also 2 second-round picks. So if it's protected from number 5 to number 14, and if it doesn't convey, it just goes to like a future first-round pick at some point. And then in return, obviously there's CJ McCollum, but they also got Larry Nance Jr. in New Orleans, which is an underrated player. He's a guy that can, he's a guy that can come in and help them right away if he's healthy. He's a heck of a rim runner. We've seen him in the dunk contest in the past, obviously too, but people underrate his game. And then the living legend, Tony Snell, the only man to get a 0.0000 in NBA action that I remember.
And also the only guy to be 100% from the free throw line the last couple seasons, because he's barely taking any.
Yeah, exactly. He was 2 of 2. Good for Tony, but no, no. So yeah, I think to your point right away, that helps out the Pelicans, and I don't think it's too far off track to talk about Zion, because I think that is the big picture. There is how this helps them. And listen, if I am Zion Williamson, I feel better about where this team's at now. Now, obviously, I think, in my opinion, they fumbled one of the best young cores in the entire league, especially with Drew Holiday there, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball. I think, not getting the coach right there really deterred that from being great, because I think Stan Van Gundy did a lot more harm there than he did good. Never seen him do that before. But
you know what? I'm just gonna throw this out there. Favorite player is Devin Booker. So I get where. Listen, I'm pissed off about it. But anyway, continue.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, if I'm Zion, hopefully, which first of all, if he doesn't play this year, I think David Griffin is gonna have a lot of questions to answer too. He already does, because of a lot of the decisions he's made and a lot of the things that have happened since he's been the general manager of New Orleans. And right now, listen, the optics on the Zion situation have never been worse. I mean, where is he? When is he going to play? Now, hopefully with CJ McCollum coming in, now we see a little more motivation, because the other thing too is, do we truly know the severity of the injury? Because we were told, again, he was going to play night 1. Well, it is, as of recording, February 9th, 2022. There have been almost 60 games of basketball that have been played since he
not
said
too many
that.
much more.
Yeah.
And with Zion, listen, I've been a big fan of his, but I always wondered health, because listen, the man is incredibly athletic, but his size does worry everybody, not even just us and me and you. It was among the scouts when he was coming out of college at Duke. It was never a question about what he was. I mean, listen, the guy's shooting like 70% from the field goal. So when he's playing, he's talented, uber talented.
Yeah.
I'm worried. Is it something that has to do with his weight, or to your point, like, and I can completely see this as well, is it hesitancy to come back, and it's a bad situation, man. Like Ingram looks like he's on an island out there. They came back on the Pistons, unfortunately, but at the same time, Pelicans got a lot of issues they got to figure out. Willie Green, I think I like him as a head coach, but you don't really, again, it's like the Chauncey Billups situation. They don't really have the pieces right now. Now with CJ, you can start to really evaluate Willie Green and be like, all right, can we take you guys seriously? And can Zion buy in and say, all right, I'm coming back. I like the head coach. I like what David Griffin's he's building here. So, but again, it's New Orleans. Like you're gonna have to pitch. It's the Portland thing. You got to pitch New Orleans to possibly the most sellable, one of the, if not the most sellable guy when he's playing in Zion Williamson. So I don't know. They got a lot of issues to figure out. But to me, I hope Zion goes somewhere. Honestly, and people hate when people say that. Like I'm a guy who's pro mobility. Like
I am too.
And we live it, and we're from obviously fans of Detroit. Like, so that says a lot, and we understand. Like, if a guy doesn't want to be here, he doesn't want to be here. It's the reality of it. And if Zion doesn't feel like, listen, I don't like New Orleans, and I want to go somewhere else in New York or wherever the hell it is. I'm okay with it, man. But obviously, New Orleans Pelicans fans are going to be just ticked off and hating.
Well, listen, New Orleans Pelicans fans, you can be mad all you want, but listen, there's just a simple truth of the fact: you had Anthony Davis in your doors for how many years, and what did you guys do with it? Now you have Zion Williamson in the doors. What have you guys done with it so far? Obviously, some of that's his health. But
do you think he looks at Anthony Davis and is like, all right, you were here most of your career, the early years of your career, and then you go to the Lakers, you win a championship. Like, he's kind of thinking to himself, like,
of course he does.
This could be me. Like, I might have to ask my way out of here and eventually lead to success. So
of course he does. But also, I think the interesting thing too is, I mean, obviously we all knew that the team he wanted to be on was the New York Knicks. They got the 3rd overall pick that year. They got his fellow classmate and fellow teammate RJ Barrett from college. And listen, I'm not gonna sit here and try and tell you I think that grass would be any greener, because what about the New York Knicks is a better situation than almost any team. I mean, that's a team that when we're counting down on the deadline, where I think they're a team that's pretty directly interest to us right now, because they have some pieces on there that reportedly Troy Weaver really likes. I wrote an article about whether or not the Pistons should trade for Mitchell Robinson and the things like that. So that is such a fascinating potential thing coming up. But, again, they were a 4th seed last year. They're 12th seed this year, so they're both of those situations for Zion either way probably weren't going to be the greatest. So,
and maybe that has to do with him wanting to be in New York. If Zion's, and he is a big basketball fan, he knows what New York is. He knows what they are as a franchise. Like, maybe it isn't all about what's going on and with your team. It's maybe about marketability, maybe about who can see me. He is a human highlight reel. So maybe in New York, I'm like, I can see it. I wouldn't be mad. Now, would you have any success? You might be Anthony Davis part 2, but if you're having fun out there, Zion, be you, man. Like, you know what I mean? Whatever you want to do.
Listen, people who think that the draft lottery could possibly be rigged, prove the fact that Zion Williamson is not a New York Knick should be proof, because believe me, there is not a place that the NBA would have wanted him to go to less than New Orleans, because that is a market that, for a lack of better terms, does not give a damn about basketball.
No way, and I agree with you. And listen, with the NBA draft and people saying it's rigged, bad example of the New Orleans Pelicans getting the number 1 overall pick. And I remember sitting there as a big basketball fan watching and just thinking to myself, I don't know if you felt the same feeling, but I'm like, as a basketball fan, I hate this. Like, I absolutely hate this. I mean, listen, it's not a hate to the New Orleans Pelicans. It's just reality. Like, we had the number 1 pick. Might have been biased. I was happy. You know what I mean? Like, Kate Cunningham's coming to Detroit. Maybe other markets weren't. Maybe that's how a lot of people feel with different markets. But at the same time, I want Zion, and not just Zion, but players like Zion and those big superstars. It's tough when you have to get drafted to a situation where you're going to fail, and that's, it's similar to the Stafford situation, which is one of my best favorite topics we talked about on the morning show. It's just that dynamic when a player is so talented, sometimes can't overcome what's around him. Like, it's the reality. Basketball, football, pick a sport. I mean, it's how it works.
I mean, look at the best organizations in the NBA and look at the ones that have succeeded the most over the course of the years. You look at the Miami Heat. From the top down over the past 20 years, is there a better organization as far as leadership, as far as structure, as far as culture, as far as everything that they have? On top of that, you look at other teams, look at the Golden State Warriors, Bob Myers, the culture
Yep.
that they have. It's all about the programs that are being built. Even Toronto, before Dwayne Casey was there, before Masai Ujiri was there, they were a laughing stock in the NBA, but then it starts from the top. It's about the culture that you build. It's about the pieces that you put in place. When you don't have that kind of culture, and listen, New Orleans is a team that is known as a franchise to be rather, not they don't have their shit together. They're dysfunctional.
Yeah.
There's just no other way to say it. I mean, and before Anthony Davis, it was Chris Paul. So they've had their fair share of stars, and the harsh reality for them is if they don't get this right with Zion, they could be kissing the Smoothie King Center goodbye and be going to play in Vegas in the T-Mobile Arena. So that's just the reality of where we're at. This team has to figure this out. Otherwise, there are real murmurs going around that this team might have to sell and might have to be relocated. So that's
100%.
That's the situation they're in. So I obviously CJ McCollum, high class vet, great player, can create his own shot. It's going to be a good situation for him. I hope he's a good thing for Zion and Brandon Ingram. I hope that works out really well. I just like watching CJ McCollum play basketball. So
yeah.
I just
maybe I'll watch a Pelicans game for the first time and since Zion was playing.
Yeah, exactly. I never thought to myself, "Ooh, I should turn on the Pelicans." But now, if those guys step on the court, that might be a thing I might actually be saying.
100%.
Speaking of teams I don't rush to the remote to turn on and watch, the Indiana Pacers, they have been quite active over this trade deadline as well, and they made they got perhaps the highway heist of the century from this trade deadline. Now, again, I posted a TikTok, I posted on Twitter a video, and I said Sacramento Kings worst trade ever ? And again, people are like, oh, you're just doing that for clicks. No, at the time, I was not speaking in hyperboles. Yeah. I was like, what are you guys doing? Because to me, the immediate feeling that I had when they traded for Domantas Sabonis, it felt exactly like the Blake Griffin trade for Detroit. And it's the thing where I obviously listen, the Sacramento Kings, they are desperate to win. They haven't been to the playoffs literally since the Pistons made the finals in 2005. Yeah. So think about how long that's been. They want to get there, and I don't blame them. However, when you act out of desperation, when you make a move because you desperately want to get to this spot and you're thinking in the short term, you're giving away so much in the long term. And I'm not saying Tyrese Halliburton's the next CP3. I'm not saying he's a superstar in this league. However, he's his second year in the league. He's almost top 10 in assists. He's the youngest player in their franchise's history to get 17 assists in a game. So to trade away your most favorable contract on your best young player who's shown more promise to me than De'Aaron Fox, I just don't get it personally. Where are you at with this trade, Jeff? What are you, am I crazy here?
No, you're not crazy. And I'll say this just to relay the message to everybody. The Sacramento Kings traded their best two shooters. Mm-hmm. Okay. And got a guy, and a former All-Star, honestly, it's still an All-Star. I love Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah, great player. Again, not about him.
Yeah, exactly. It's not all about what you got back. It's about what you gave up. Mm-hmm. You gave up a second-year guy who, since I believe December 12th, he's, like you said, averaging, I think, 9 assists, shooting 43% from three. You already mentioned it, 17 assists in a game. The guy can play, and he's obviously the backcourt with him, De'Aaron Fox. Who knows with De'Aaron Fox? I like De'Aaron Fox a lot. We know he can't shoot, and that was kind of the complimentary. And obviously he's not as good of a playmaker as Tyrese Halliburton. So there's the two bonuses you're getting with Tyrese. And they up and said, listen, ownership. And I understand, so impatient, and that's what's going to bite you in the ass because you get so impatient, and you haven't made the playoffs in 15 years, longest drought in NBA out of all the NBA teams, and you're going to sit up here and put pressure on Elvin Gentry, put pressure on Monty McNair, and say, all right, we got to acquire a superstar. Like, you jumped the gun, and you traded possibly a guy, and like you said, who knows what Tyrese is going to be, but that's not the point. It's the point of we don't know. We might know what Domantas Sabonis is already.
He's in his prime. He's 25.
In his prime.
This is it. He's in his prime.
And what does Domantas Sabonis provide to your team so far? Like, the Kings aren't going anywhere. You're going to trade for Domantas Sabonis, possibly make the play-in tournament and get bounced. That is your ideology of taking the next step. Like it's inexcusable. It really is. For the Pacers' perspective, you got. I mean, I like the Pacers now, man. Like they're gunning towards a rebuild. You already have Malcolm Brogdon. You got Tyrese Halliburton. Now you add Buddy Hield, who cares if you keep him or not? Great trade piece. Someone's going to want Buddy Hield. Shooting's key in this league, and now you have more assets. So Pacers W. Even though they got rid of a guy who they wanted to get rid of, Domantas Sabonis, for whatever reason, just in terms of the direction they were heading, he's a valuable piece. But yeah, like you said, man, like I don't get the Kings' perspective. They have their best shooter on the team is Harrison Barnes shooting like 33%. Like, what the hell? You can't. This isn't the 1990s. You can't hit twos and win basketball games. The Kings are gonna have to figure it out. So unless they're hitting layups, not 100% of the time, they are fucked.
yeah. There's no good way to put it. It just feels like they're fucked. And to your point with De'Aaron Fox's ability to shoot the three, here's the problem. His 3-point shot, it's gotten worse over his career. His second year in the league, he was averaging 37% from beyond the arc. 2021, 2022, year 5, he's 24, a year behind Domantas Sabonis. Guess his 3-point percentage. Just shoot me a number. Give me a guess.
I with that, it's got to be somewhere in the 20s.
It is 26%.
Oh my God.
This
That's
man,
Russell Westbrook.
He takes 4 threes. He's making one of them. That is bad. And they don't respect him from 3 either. He's getting some open looks. And here's the worst part. You're looking at that and it's like, oh, he's got to take a lot. He only takes 3.7 a game. That is bad. He doesn't even average 4 threes a game, and he only makes 1 in 4. It's an event when this guy makes a 3.
And you got rid of your guy who, besides Buddy Hield, the most consistent 3-point shooter. Those two guys, I don't get how the trade works in my mind, but hopefully the Kings, like, this is a long-term plan. I mean, I don't mind going out and saying, F it, let's try and go all out, as long as you have a direction. Like, I don't know their direction. Are you going to get more shooting? Are you going to get veterans? I don't know, but the trade straight up, if we're looking at it, what they got versus what Indiana got, clearly they took an L. Like, you can't say anything otherwise.
Yeah, well, in addition, because if you look at other trades that were being discussed, there were rumors that they could have gone and they could have done a swap of De'Aaron Fox for Julius Randle. And are you telling me, like, if you're going to go make a play-in tournament, listen, if you're looking at it in the grand scheme of things, what would you rather have as a franchise? The point guard on the favorable contract with a power forward that you don't love, but you really like, who's been an all-star in the past, might just need to be in a more quiet environment, which Sacramento, pretty quiet, not a whole lot of things happening in Sacramento. So would you rather have Tyrese Halliburton and Julius Randle and have that to build around, and at least that could push for a play-in tournament? That's your core. Or De'Aaron Fox, the guy who can't shoot, the guy that is a good, not great playmaker that has not really improved much since being in the league. And now you have to have Domantas Sabonis, who, if you want to keep him around, you're eventually going to have to pay. And it's just, this gets expensive quickly. And I think the ceiling's close to their floor. So, I just don't think if their ceiling was an apartment complex, they'd have to army crawl through the building just to get around, because there's no room to stand with how close the floor and their ceiling is.
You know what's more sad about that entire trade situation is the fact that Tyrese Halliburton wanted to be in Sacramento. Like, that's the biggest mind blow of this entire thing. He wanted to be in Sacramento, and you traded him. Apparently the reports were he was devastated when he found out. How stupid. And not even from an ownership, because owners, they just want results. I get it. But from a GM perspective, unless you're under so much pressure from the ownership, you're like, F it, and you just say, get rid of this man. But if you're actually critically thinking about what you're giving away, a guy who's clearly, I don't watch a lot of Kings basketball, but if you check and actually go through the film and watch Tyrese Halliburton, he's been their best player. Like, statistically, okay, De'Aaron Fox averages more points by like 6 or 7. But in terms of value, in terms of what he does on both sides of the ball, and like you said, in the playmaking, he can space the floor. He's today's
He plays like Cade Cunningham. He is a Cade Cunningham type player, where they are the guys that can go out and they can do everything. They can fill whatever role you need them to fill at any given time. And so, when I said that the Kings had too many point guards and they needed to trade one of their point guards. They traded the one that they needed to keep. And that's where
they still messed it up.
They still fucked it up. And that's incredible. Like it's almost a talent to be that dysfunctional.
Yeah.
So
no, it is. It is. And from a Lions fan perspective,
exactly.
I see it. I know it. When I see it. So yeah, Kings. I don't know what they're going to do to advance this, but if you're setting yourself up in a situation like this where now you're putting pressure on Elvin Gentry, like, all right, we got our superstar guys. So either we try and make the play in this year or next year, we better make the playoffs. Guys are going to lose their jobs, whether it's GM, whether it's head coach. I mean, we're talking about a New Orleans Pelican situation all over again.
Yeah, and they have one of the worst ownership groups in sports. They have an owner that openly advocated for their team to cherry pick. He said, why not just he literally said at one point, why not just have 4 guys play defense and then 1 guy you can pass it to make it? I'm like, you legitimately think in the NBA that cherry picking.
He plays 2K.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Oh my gosh.
And you know what's so embarrassing about this entire thing is like looking at the ownership of the Kings and looking at the trades they've made. I can't help but admit, like, my guy Joe Dumars is over there too, so he deserves a little bit of blame. I don't know what in terms of say he has on these trades, but I'll never forget as much respect as I have for Joe for acquiring important pieces of that team, building that team, and building us a championship. What keeps me awake at night is that draft night decision, and I'll never get over that draft night decision. So Joe, I feel bad for him. He's with the Kings, and he's got a lot of messes over there that I don't know if he's getting them into or helping them get into, but. The Kings are interesting, man. I don't think they'll ever work it out. I really don't. It's tough over there.
Yeah, in the short term, like I said, it could look good. It is one of those things where they did, at this point in time, if you're speaking technically, did get the best player in the trade. However, however, if you get in the habit of looking at trades in a vacuum, it's eventually going to blow up in your face. And I think that's just one. I think that's just one that we're going to keep looking at for years to come. And we're just going to say, what were they thinking? Now on the Pacers side, again, absolute congratulations. You're starting your rebuild off in the best way possible. You can keep Miles Turner if you want at this point. You can trade him if you want to. You're in a good situation no matter what. Buddy Hield, the exact same thing, because at the end of the day, you have Tyrese Halliburton. You're going to be able to get a decent draft pick this year, and you're still going to be able to rebuild while being competitive and not like a really bad team either. So I think for them, you just have to be thrilled with.
Yeah, because and I don't know what the Pacers are going to do with TJ Warren. Obviously, he's been out, but with the Pacers, man, that core: Malcolm Brogdon, Tyrese Halliburton. You got Miles Turner when he's back healthy. Like you said, a great draft pick. Who knows what they're going to do with that? TJ Warren. Like listen, I like the Pacers. What they're building now. Do I want to face them in a couple years with Tyrese? No, I don't. But at the same time, hopefully. We ascend just if not more than them. So that's the plan.
Exactly. And if I'm Tyrese Halliburton, getting traded and having Rick Carlisle as my coach might be one of the best things that ever happened to me. That might be one of the best things that ever happened to his career. So, he might be devastated right now, but I think he's going to be looking back, and even Indiana might seem like it has more sunshine than Sacramento. So yeah, they're going to have a really interesting, they're going to have a really, really interesting period going forward. Speaking of a team that is in turmoil and is in a really weird situation, things are going on in Brooklyn right now, man. It is there. First of all, Woj and Brian Windhorst directly conflicting reports. Woj is like, nope, they're not even talking right now. And Windhorst is like, well, this is the package that they have. This is where they're going. And it's like, these are like two of the most reliable names in basketball. So it's like, who do you believe? I'm going to tend to believe the guy that's hearing about the smoke and not the one that's out of town, doesn't see it. You know what I mean? I think Brian Windhorst, I think it's pretty obvious James Harden wants some change, but Jeff, if you're the Brooklyn Nets, are you eager to make that move? Even if you do get Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle and possibly Tyrese Maxey in return, like what? First of all, if I'm the Brooklyn Nets, you just fumbled the best big three of players since the big three in Miami. But also, what do you do with this trade? Like, do you actually want to make this trade? You know what I mean?
Yeah, in my opinion, especially with the Nets, like you said, the best big three since the Miami Heat, like on paper. I mean, we tell you,
Mm-hmm.
Golden State Warriors, they had quite the team, obviously stacked on paper. But if you're talking about pure talent,
Mm-hmm.
accolades, what they are previously, then no doubt the Nets had it all. And
Mm-hmm.
now last year, the question was always health. They didn't play a whole lot of games together. They didn't have chemistry. I don't know what made James Harden change his mind. I really don't. Like, I wish I knew more about whether it was going on, in the locker room, outside of it, whether he's just bored. Like with James, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, is he just
Yeah.
one day saying, you know what, I want to change, or is there something he doesn't like, or whatever the
Right.
case may be. Now with Philly, in terms of James Harden wanting out, I think Ben Simmons. I mean, if you look at the trade deadline, he's probably, if you want to talk about a player that'll fit on Brooklyn, Kyrie, not really a playmaker. Who knows? Let's just get this
Yeah.
straight too. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what Kyrie's future is either. Like I've said this before about
Yeah.
a week ago. I wouldn't be surprised if next year it's a Brooklyn big one. Like we just have Kevin
Yeah.
Durant there and
Mm-hmm.
everybody else is kicking rocks. I don't know, but with Ben Simmons, I like Ben Simmons. The only problem is I said this, and I had a Twitter. I posted a clip on this years ago when we had this rant on Ben Simmons. I said I was so aggravated that he was even in the question coming to the Pistons because I never in today's NBA. If you can't shoot or you're refusing to shoot like Ben
Yep.
Simmons can, it's not like he can't. I mean, he can't shoot 3-pointers as well. But in terms, he just refused to shoot.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Yeah.
inside the paint, whether it's in the mid range, doesn't matter. He just didn't. Especially in the playoff series.
I'm glad you said that. Sorry to interrupt you real quick, but
No, you're fine.
But again, it's the distinction with Ben Simmons. People say he can't shoot. That's not the problem that he can't shoot. The problem is he won't shoot.
There you
Even
go.
and at times he won't even shoot 2 feet from the rim when he's wide open in a playoff game and in crucial moments. Like it's like if you refuse to shoot and if you have that mental block in there that is not allowing you, and also you're passing blame on other people and there's all this stuff. It's like, listen, Ben Simmons, amazing player to your point, but if I have a guy that doesn't have that mental instinct, it's like Dwayne Casey talks about Cade Cunningham. It's that it factor. A lot of that is
Right.
mentally, you know what I mean? And if you don't have that, that's something you can't train. And I think with James Harden, I think it's a similar thing where, to your point, it's like, do we know why he wants to? Now, I would guess
Yeah.
it's a lot. Now, my guess would be it has a lot to do with the Kyrie Irving situation, how frustrating it is to have your third guy who all it would take is to just, go get the shot.
Get the
And
poke.
then he could, just go get the poke and you could be here full time. But, obviously he chooses not to. That's your own choice. That's whatever. We're not doctors here. We're not going to pretend to be. But, what we do know is all you got to do to be here full time is get the poke, and you won't get the poke. So, yeah.
You know what's funny too with that situation is Kyrie, and I've said this, like when he refused to get the vaccine, I always wondered what would the Nets look like Game 7. Now I don't know if they'll make the finals now, but at the beginning of the year, you're telling me Game 7, you're in Brooklyn and Kyrie Irving ain't gonna be there. Like that,
He's
that's
like,
what I
oh
was trying
man, I wish I could be there, dude. Like,
to. Yeah. I'll be watching. Like, no, you can't get away with that, Kyrie. So the Nets,
I'll cheer for you.
yeah, you ain't gonna get away with that. And with Ben Simmons, to go back to your point about Ben Simmons, it's a problem with me because he's so passive and it ain't gonna work. Like he's so talented, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Like if he went to the Nets, I want to believe in my heart. Like I've given this kid, the man, this so much benefit of the doubt. Ben Simmons. I would hope KD would be like, listen, like you need to be who we think you are and who you are as Ben Simmons. You're 6'10", point guard who can realistically get any shot at the rim you so choose. Maybe you'd like him to shoot 3-pointers, but even if you don't take him, like if you want to pull a Rajon Rondo, at least Rajon found a way to get involved. At least these guys that can't shoot, I mean, Russell is a different story. Maybe you're doing too much, but if you can't shoot, you can find a way. And with Ben, I think there's still hope with him. He's got only a couple years in the league, and I think the Nets, I would like to see him on the Nets. Change of scenery for him, and you get to play with great players, and hopefully that'll snap him into his ways. Hopefully,
yeah. I think if they can find a way, if reports do suggest that they really want to get Seth Curry in that deal, like if Philly still wants to keep Tyrese Maxey and you throw in Seth Curry instead, fine, do it. Because I think, I do think that from if you're just talking purely a basketball fit, I think for Ben Simmons, it is a much better fit. I think if you let him be the playmaker, come down the court, he has room to operate in the post. And it's very similar to the Giannis situation in Brooklyn, where he can kick it out to shooters. And, it gives more room for guys like Kevin Durant to operate out in the perimeter. So I think from a basketball fit, I think it's certainly interesting. And,
and to add to that point, that's why they brought James Harden. Like, he was supposed to be their point guard to run their offense. And he's done a good job, but like the fact that he's tapping out and saying, all right, I'm going to Philly, you're getting essentially a guy back who isn't going to give you the scoring output James will, but in the playmaking department and defensively, because the Nets, the question to me was always, who's guarding who in the fourth quarter? You have Kyrie, James Harden, and KD. KD, I trust a lot, but KD, those guys aren't perimeter defenders. So I think he adds a lot to Brooklyn. I don't know. I wish I could tell you what I see in Ben Simmons' ceiling, because nobody knows. Like, if he doesn't shoot, if he refuses to shoot, he's hit his ceiling. Like 15 to 17 points a game. He'll give you, close to a double-double, triple-double with those numbers. Yeah. But that's sad. A guy that talented, just shoot the ball. Whether just shoot a mid-range, dude. That's all you gotta do.
I wish I could just refer him to like a really good therapist. It's like just
talk about your problems. Are you scared?
Yeah.
Like,
watch the Notebook or something. Like, it's okay to cry, Ben. Like, accept the breakup.
Watch Like Mike. Like, get inspired, man. Like, get out there and just get inspired. Like, whatever it is, man. Like, Ben Simmons needs to just snap a light bulb. But hopefully it works out for him. But I see the Nets as a good destination. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Now, the likelihood of this trade going through, we have no clue. For all we know, that could go, that trade we could wake up to it in the morning and see that that's happening. But, we have no clue. So until then, we'll just wait and see. But another situation, before we get into the Pistons and talk a little bit about our guy, Jeremy Grant, we've been dancing around Russell Westbrook quite a bit. And we're talking about our guy, Adam, who's also the host of the morning show, said this morning that being benched made him a top 500 player in the NBA. Just his lack of presence on the court made him a top 500 player, and that he would rather have Muggsy Bogues or Matthew Dellavedova over Russell Westbrook.
And I have to add this too. He did tweet today, I'd rather have Chucky Atkins. I'd rather have him over Russell Westbrook. And I want to say this, like, as much as I love Adam and I love, honestly, I agree. Like, Russell is overrated at this point in his career, and I think people are starting to realize that. I've always been a fan of his game, though. Like, I argued with Adam probably, I would say 3 months ago, we had this argument. Is he a top 10 point guard? I said, yes. If he's not a top 10, he's outside of it because of his body of work, like what he's done in terms of accolades. It doesn't matter about winning. Like, when you look at winning, it's good, it's important. But if we're talking as a pure all-around talent point guard, not about do you make your teammates better. I'm not over here swifting through all the things you want to swift through. In terms of pure talent, I thought he was. But this season, man, like, his mentality, like, I respect it so much, but sometimes it's almost his detriment. Like, you start to sit back and watch, and you're like, dude, like, we have Lakers fans booing you when you touch the ball. Like, doesn't that like mess with, I mean, I'm sure he hears it, of course, but does it affect you in practice? Do you actually think to yourself, maybe I shouldn't take, if I'm wide open for 5 times a game, like everybody's leaving me, maybe I shouldn't take all 5 of them. Like, does that not cross his mind? That's all I ask. Change his mentality, go to the paint. Nobody can stop Russell when he's full speed. Now, he's lost a little athleticism. He has. And let's be honest. He's missing dunks. I'm sitting here watching. I've never seen him miss. But at least efficiency-wise, he can improve. Turnovers have to go down. Like, the Lakers, the only deal I see, and just to tie this into the trade conversation, I think the only deal they have on the table for the Lakers that I'm talking about is John Wall. And that's the sad part. Like, do you want shit? Or do you want shit? Like, you have John Wall, Russell, and I like them both, but very similar. Like, John Wall can't shoot. You think he's going to bring anything to the Lakers? Probably not.
But at least he can shoot a little bit better than Russell Westbrook. Yeah.
At least he can hit free throws. I'll give you that. Russell, which I don't get. You can't shoot, and you can't shoot free throws either. Like, you're a liability at all times.
Which he used to be a really good free throw shooter.
What happened?
It was just all of a sudden 1 year, it just went from like 80 to 60%.
I remember watching that year too. Like, I don't know if it was MVP year, the year it went down, or he was still shooting efficiently, but I remember watching Russell and I'm like, man, he's a good free throw shooter. And now looking back, I'm like, what in the, it's either a mentality thing, something mental. Maybe he's just like not confident in his shot. I don't know what it is, but with Russell, man, it's been interesting. And the Lakers, they realize now, and other franchises realize, maybe it's not always a smart idea to let your superstars make decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe they don't know basketball as much as maybe the guys in the executive department do. Like,
Yeah,
it's the reality of it.
exactly. So looking at his career, his best year, this was, this is the first year he averaged a triple double. This was his MVP year. He shot 85% from the free throw line.
Jesus.
And then the next year, it goes down to 74%, which is a pretty significant change. But then it goes down to 65%. And then it goes back up to 76, and then it goes back down to 65. And the problem is it stayed there. So, it is to the point where, listen, I think what we're seeing right now with Russell Westbrook is what we see with a lot of guys. I just think it's all about how you handle it and adjust it. And it's the fact that Russell Westbrook is facing his basketball mortality. He is on a team where he has to understand, if he wants to win, he can no longer have the role and be the guy that he used to be. Now, obviously, when Russell Westbrook was the triple-double king, he was going out there every single night, carrying the Oklahoma City Thunder on his back to a playoff run, all that kind of stuff. The guy was insane. Don't get me wrong. The things he could do on a basketball court, the guy was just a motor and a machine. But again, at a certain point, your body begins to break down. Things begin to happen. You're no longer
knee surgery.
Yeah, you're no longer the same guy that you used to be. And so with that, your game needs to change. Like, we've seen guys like Dwayne Wade, who played a lot like Russell Westbrook, who had similar issues to Russell Westbrook, where Dwayne Wade was like, he was a decent jump shooter, but like not great. He wasn't the guy that you wanted taking threes, but like as he got older, that needed to become like a part of his game. We saw him get better with that. We saw him still be a pretty darn good player towards the end of his career. But with Russell Westbrook, again, even Carmelo Anthony, he needed to have that like basketball mortality thing, where he needed to realize that he needed to have a different role. Even Dwight Howard, he needed to accept that he was no longer the star big man that he once was, and that he needed to come in and be a role player. And with Russell Westbrook, it's not that you're going to have to be a role player, but you're not going to be the star neither. And that's where it needs to come in and change, saying things like, I've earned the right to close and finish games. Listen, what you earn in this league is what you've done for me lately. And when there's been times where he hasn't gotten back on defense, he's let guys easily blow them by. I think of the first time he got benched when Karis LeVert dropped 20 and a quarter in the fourth quarter, and he just let him blow by for an easy layup, literally on something where they're like, hey.
And not to mention, sorry to interrupt you, but not to mention also, they told Russell Westbrook, Karis is going to drive with his right hand. And they still, Russell, what the heck? Anyway,
he looked like he was surprised.
I was mind blown.
He looked like he was surprised. But again, that's the thing. When you're faced with your basketball mortality, you have to respond. And I think the problem is, it's pretty obvious, when he's been faced with his mortality, he wants to be the Russell Westbrook of old. And the problem is, if you want to last in this league and still be a productive player for years to come, you got to change your role. So
100%. And to add to that, with Russell Westbrook, it was never a question of how hard he plays. And I think that might lead to his demise in a way, because he plays so hard and he goes so, like LeBron, and this is so, it's kind of arrogant to compare arguably one of the best players ever to Russell. But in terms of his mindset, you look at him, you look at, you bring up Giannis, you can look at other guys that their game was revolved around in the post. Russell Westbrook, it's hard for him to process, and I've seen at times he'll maybe attempt 1-3 in an entire game, and you're like, okay, he's starting to get it. Like, Russell maybe understands that I'm not gonna stand open to the 3-point line because I'm going to be open. Like, he can't sit here and be like, I'm open, no dip. You can't shoot from 3. You're going to be open every time you step over there. So with Russell, it's a matter of understanding his role, and you can see it. Like, you don't see this a lot with guys like LeBron, who create super teams. He's always creating super teams. He's never been this like they asked him the question the other day, like, are you on the same level as the Bucks? He's like, are you kidding me? Like,
he's like,
this
no.
Is not.
What do you want? He's like, no. What do you want me to say? No, we're not right now. No.
No, he looks defeated. Like, like I've never seen it. And it's crazy what Russell, like you said, it's almost like a talent in a way that you have to go. You have the ability to go to Houston. Okay, you and James Harden, everybody, including me, everybody was using him in 2K. Everybody loved the backcourt. All right, that was a sweet backcourt. You're excited to watch the Houston Rockets and see what they can do. Two guys that have similar games.
Yeah,
blew up. You trade over to Washington. Okay. You're with Bradley Beal, like a guy who doesn't need the ball to play. Like he's okay with catching and shooting. He's a great shot creator. Russell still messes it up. Okay. So the Lakers acquire him. What in the hell did you think would happen? And that's what Rob Pelinka, like the guy, and I don't want to crap on Rob because at the end of the day, LeBron, and they call him Le GM for a reason. Like if he comes up to your office and he says, you know what? I want this guy. Like I want Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
And it's like he does it. I can't hate on him, but this is what happens. Now people are going to look at you when things go to shit. They're not going to say LeBron. They might, but most of the blame is like, why the hell would you let LeBron, when you had a trade for Buddy Hield lined up? And I remember sitting there thinking when the Buddy Hield rumors were coming along, I'm like, wow, that would be a great fit. It's a guy who humble. Just give me the ball. I'll shoot when you need me to. I'll take every shot will be a 3-point shot. He does not care, buddy. And he'll still get you 15 to 18 points, whatever it is. No, they went to Russell, who's given him similar point output that he probably would have gave you, but it's garbage numbers. Like it's low efficiency, it's turnovers, it's like you said, can't shoot free throws. So the Lakers, to me, he set them back probably another 2 years because he's going to opt in next year into the player option.
Of course,
because who wouldn't? I mean, obviously in his case, $47 million.
Yeah.
They're done. They're screwed. Like the Lakers, man, they're done.
Yeah, exactly. And the only way that they can move off of his contract right now is if they trade the 2027 first round pick to go along with him. And I'm reading rumors that are like that are saying, oh, well, they're unlikely to trade Russ before the deadline. And they're like, and the reason why is because they'd want to attach the 2029 pick instead. And I'm like, wow. So like, it's not even that you're keeping them around because it's like, no, we want to buy in and we want to like see this core out and give them time to figure it out together. It's like, oh no, it's just so we can trade away the chip that's later on. It's like,
yeah, no, sorry, Rob. Like it's funny to watch them and compare them. They don't have a first round pick, and listen, they acquired Anthony Davis and they gave him a haul. So I get why, and you got a championship out of it. But now you trade for Russell. You have to give up assets for Russell, which okay. At the time, you kind of get it, superstar, whatever. Maybe he'll work with LeBron because everybody in my lifetime, then like you said, LeBron in Miami, super team. It worked. Year one wasn't ideal in the finals, but he ended up following it up and winning championships. I've never seen LeBron not work with a guy, no matter who it is. Kyrie comes back with Kyrie. Kevin Love pairs it, works. Finals. Comes it with Miami. Finals, championships. Has Anthony Davis, has the team, wins a championship. Russell Westbrook, like, it's honestly, it's incredibly surprising to see it from afar. Now fans get it now. I think fans are slowly getting it. Whatever's glamorous and the most entertaining might not always be winning basketball.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, they might be three big names, but at the end of the day, when you put them together on a basketball court and you just have to focus on the game and how things work and the offense that you're going to run, is this going to work? And I remember I was on my way to the Pistons draft party when the trade went down. We were in a McDonald's getting food beforehand, and my friend reads it off on the phone, and they're like, "Oh my God!" And I go, "I know, right? What are they thinking?" And they're like, "What are you talking about? They just got Russell Westbrook." I'm like, "This isn't gonna work. This is gonna be terrible." And then it was terrible. You know what I mean? It's like if you actually like, and again, to your point, the reason why we think it's going to work is because LeBron is always going to make it work. However, LeBron James in those seasons wasn't missing games, and LeBron James now is going to miss 15, 20, 25 games a season because of his health, because of the minutes he's put on his body. That's just going to happen. He's 35, 36 years old, already has the most minutes in the history of the league. So,
and maybe to your point, like maybe they traded for Russell thinking that as well. Like now you have a guy who can, in a way, put the team on your back when LeBron's missing games, but holy hell. And they won a couple games with Russell and AD, but it's ugly.
But even then people were like, oh, that's going to be a great pairing, Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis. They have not worked well together at all.
No.
They are like, people are like, oh, in the pick and roll, those two guys, like in theory, it's like, that's dangerous. And it's like, no, that's fucking terrible. Like, what are you talking about?
It's the complete opposite. Like, God.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. But Yeah, so I do not envy their situation in LA
No.
whatsoever. We'll see what they're going to do. I think Russell Westbrook will still be a Laker after the trade deadline, just because I think
Yeah.
there's almost no way they pull off that John Wall trade. Because here's the thing, it's not, they're acting like the grass would be greener on the other side. Imagine if you give up that first round pick to bring John Wall in the building, and a guy again that we haven't seen play basketball all year. Imagine if he comes in and he plays even worse than Russell Westbrook. First of all, Rob Pelinka would lose his job.
Yeah,
That's just that just
you
would happen.
you don't want to get into a situation where you're digging a deeper hole. Like
Exactly.
that's what it could be. Like you're already dug a hole. Try to get the hell out of it. If you get
Mm-hmm.
John Wall and it doesn't work out, yeah, you're 6 feet deep, man. You might as well close the
Mm-hmm.
casket. Like you're dead at that point. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Rob Pelinka, you got to walk on eggshells a little bit with him. You have to.
Yeah, and real quick, there are reports that like there is interest to bring in Spencer Dinwiddie for. They actually found a suitor for the Taylor Horton Tucker and a first round pick. Uh, uh, package it looks like. So they're definitely going to be active, but we'll see what
Um,
happens with them. Now with the rest of our time together, though, it is time. I saved the best for last. It is time to talk about our Detroit Pistons and Troy Weaver.
yes, sir.
Now it feels like Pistons Twitter made it a foregone conclusion when reports went out there suggesting that Jeremy Grant could be traded. It almost felt like everyone believed he's going to be traded. And I've had the pleasure of talking to I had Rod Beard on my podcast a few weeks ago. The week after that, I had James Edwards III. So I was able to talk with both of them, and they gave me the exact same sense that it is 50-50. They have no clue whether he's going to be traded or not. And in my opinion, if he doesn't get traded, it is not the end of the world, because Jeremy Grant is still a really good basketball player. I know he hasn't looked the greatest this year. It hasn't been the best. However, he's hardly played with Cade Cunningham, and when he has, they've been having to learn how to play together. So that's
Right.
obviously a pretty difficult thing. Also, coming back from injury, that's always difficult to adjust from. So I think some of the slander of Jeremy Grant's a little unwarranted. However, that doesn't change the fact that the Pistons do want to utilize and maximize his value. And they do want to, if it does turn out to be the case that he's not going to be the best fit of this core and he's not on our timeline, that he probably should have a new home. With that being said, what is your gut on what do you think is going to happen? And what would you like to see to happen?
Well, I'll start with my gut. My gut says he's a Piston after the trade deadline, but
Yep.
what I want to happen is a deal. And now I don't know the chances of it, but my two favorite guys going into this deadline, and it's not about the how, it's about the if. And I like two guys, Cam Reddish. I like Marvin Bagley. Those are
Mm-hmm.
two guys, and I don't know about, you have to center some assets around there, like a first
Mm-hmm.
round pick or whatever. But in terms of just getting a young guy, a young player, talented player, and two guys, Marvin Bagley, who hasn't been utilized really at all in Sacramento,
Yeah.
and Cam Reddish, same exact situation, similar to when we got Josh Jackson, and look what he
Mm-hmm.
turned into for us, a very good
Mm-hmm.
player.
Yeah.
I like those two guys, but realistically, if we're just talking about Jeremy Grant being dealt, I agree, and I talked to Easy about this because he feels like the value is still there equally if you wait till next season. I disagree.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be able to trade him. Like you said, he's a great player.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, the value's the most right now because
Yep.
contending teams, now we don't know where he could go. It could be a team that wants to clear off cap. I don't think so. It'd be a team that
Mm-hmm.
wants to take the next step and try to make the playoffs, or even if they're in the playoffs, contend. And those teams want to sign Jeremy Grant. Like they want him for the extended period of this season. They want him throughout the next season. Now, there's a less of a chance you have a season really and a half with him. Maybe you can re-sign him. If you trade him, at the deadline next year or a little before, you have a guy for half the season, he could just walk out the door. So,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, values now, reality is it's probably going to be maybe draft. I'm hoping if not this deadline, by the draft, maybe you find a
Yeah.
deal you can acquire, get a first round pick and another good
Yeah.
player.
Yeah, because I
But
still think you can get good value around the draft too.
yeah, agreed with there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think more so it's a detriment if you wait till next season, into next season.
Yeah.
But with Jeremy Grant, I'm a huge fan of him. Just his game, like his development coming from Denver. And last year I was fighting him to be an all-star even though he sucked. I loved it. I wanted him to win most improved player.
Yeah,
Wanted
same.
it all for Jeremy Grant. So I'm rooting for him, but in terms of just the fit, it's hard because Jeremy's to put it harshly, a ball stopper. Like he really is. It's hard with Jeremy. He's an isolation guy, very talented at it,
Yeah.
but he would be best as a third option on a team, like a
Yeah.
great team that has two superstars. Jeremy slides in. Maybe I don't know how he's thinking mentally. Do I want to be a third fiddle? But in my mind, his best fit, go to a team that's already there, just needs a piece. I think Portland's a good opportunity because you have
Yeah.
Dame Lillard, you have Nurkic if they re-sign him this summer, and then you have Jeremy in there, and then you can kind of get another guy. I think it's a good little fit there. But for Jeremy, man, I want to see him go to a good spot and us get a young player, high upside, not on a fat contract. I mean, I like Buddy
Right.
Hield, but I don't want to pay Buddy Hield $20 million for the next 3
Yeah,
years. Like, you know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, you got to look at the contract as well. So, Jeremy, fan of him, but I would like to see him dealt ideally by the draft. That would be my best case scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. I as the season's gone on and I've seen the play of Sadiq Bey and how well he's been performing and how much his game's been opened up by the sidelining of Jeremy Grant.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where you get it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
the problem if he stays is that we're going to have hopefully a top 3 pick this summer. And that's just another primary guy in the offense that's going to need the ball because if you're just looking at the team that we have right now, yeah, might not be the end of the world if he stays with us, forever. And again, I love Jeremy Grant. If we ultimately extend him, I trust Troy Weaver and I still like him as a player, so I wouldn't be upset. But again, when we get that guy who, whether it's a Jabari Smith Jr., whether it's a Apollo, whether it's, a Chet Holmgren, you know what I mean? That's going to be someone that's going to need the ball in their hands as well. That's going to be the pick and roll partner with Cade Cunningham. That's what we're going to want to get. Right. And when you have Jeremy Grant in there, that's at that point, he's not going to be our number one option in Detroit either. At least he shouldn't be. So, with that being said, obviously I look at a situation like if in a perfect world, if we could just get Patrick Williams from Chicago and trade him to the Bulls, like that would be, if I was the GM, I would sign on that yesterday. Like that would have already happened. But obviously Chicago, and understandably so, is weary to trade Patrick Williams because he's a stud. So, Sacramento, you never know. They could do something too. Portland, what do they have the assets to get that done?
That's the problem.
Yeah, because they did get a first round pick in that trade back, so they do have a first round pick that they could trade. However, are they going to try to build in the draft? Are they trying to build through free agency and trades? We don't know.
And I'm selfish too. As a Pistons fan, I'm looking as the best destination. What can I get back with the Portland Trailblazers? That's probably the least.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting maybe Anthony and maybe what else? I mean, Nikhil's gone, so that asset's gone. Damian Lillard's untouchable. Nurkic is a free agent, so it's tough. Like you said, Sacramento ideally for Marvin Bagley, but with Jeremy, I'm so glad you brought this up because with him sidelined and the emergence of Sadiq Bey, Cade Cunningham, and now this year, most of my opinions come from the fact that we're probably going to have if not a secure top 3 pick, somewhere in that ballpark, top 4, top 5. You're going to select a guy who's going to fill that role. Like if it's Chet Holmgren, then different conversation. But I think still, to your point, needs the ball. Jabari Smith, he's playing his same position. Paolo Bencaro, he's playing his same position. So I think that point is a great point because it makes it more perspective. Like if we are going to draft, let's say the best prospects this year were all guards and we were short on forwards. We have Sadiq Bey, which I like. Isaiah Stewart, ideally in my mind, he comes off the bench.
He's a perfect backup big. Perfect
100%. Perfect backup big, and he could fill that spot. Maybe you look at other spots, maybe you're like, well, maybe we can use Jeremy, but the problem is you have to pay him next year. He's making $20 million next year. He's eligible for like a 4-year?
Yeah, 4-year, $120 million contract, which again, which again, with a guy like that, that is the price for his services. And the thing is like, when we brought him into Detroit, we knew that was going to be a possibility. If he played well, that we would have to do that. And here's the thing. It's not the fact that we would have to pay him. It's the fact that we would have to pay him this early especially because Pistons fans, whenever we hear salary cap, we cringe because we think back of the Blake Griffin contract that we had on the books. We think of the fact that we literally just stopped paying for Josh Smith's contract like a year ago. So when when we've been through all the salary cap hell that we've been through over the past decade with everything that's gone on with this franchise, do you want to start your first time having cap room with a $30 million contract on the books, especially when Cade Cunningham, let's be real, is probably going to get the rookie supermax extension. Let's be real. He's going to be good enough to get that, right? You're going to have whoever is going to be our number, our top three pick. Yeah. Sadiq Bey as well. He's going to have a market to him. And that's definitely a guy you're going to want to pay. And then whoever we select in the top three, whether it's Jabari Smith Jr., whether it's Chet Holmgren, whether it's Paulo, like whoever it is, that guy's definitely going to be getting paid too. So, so it adds up really quickly. And especially, here's the other thing. Those are just the guys that we have on our roster right now. What about the potential veterans that Troy Weaver's talking about wanting to add, not after next season, right? So it's like, it's one of those things where you don't want to be overly conservative with your cap room. However, when you've had it for the first time in quite a while, you just got to make sure that whichever player you spend that money on is the right guy. And that's the thing is Jerami Grant's timeline. Is this the peak? Is this the best we're going to see of him? Because if it is, do we want to see him possibly deteriorate under a $30 million a year salary? And that's just the reality of it, right?
No, 100%. And the point about him being, and this is similar to the NFL, when you have guys on rookie contracts, you can go out and pay those guys. You can sign Jerami to a 3-year contract for $60 million, whatever it was. That's fine. But when you get these guys and years go by and you're paying Jerami $30 million and he's damn near almost 30 years old at that point, it's tough because, like you said, you have guys coming up the pipeline and guys, not only that, but you have to be flexible and have the cap space in order to secure guys at the deadline, like like Paul George at one point. Like those blockbuster trades that go down, you want to be ready for them. And if you're paying a guy like Jerami or in the past like Blake or Andre Drummond, it handcuffs you. And we know Troy Weaver, he's a very intelligent guy, man. And with that being said, in the cap situation, I have no issues with how he's going to approach it. And I think he's even thinking, like, very intelligent people think ahead. Very ahead.
Yeah.
Like I think Troy's looking in terms of like 5-year plan, whatever it is.
Sure.
And he's looking at free agency classes, what he can get. And I don't know if Jerami Grant, although I know Troy's in love with him because it's almost like his guy. He signed to Detroit, had the breakout year. He loves playing for an African American coach, an African American city, Detroit. And now you kind of have to be like, all right, bye-bye. And it could be hard, and maybe it could make you, ask for where we're heading as a team. Jerami can't help us now. And when he can help us, is his value the same as it right now? I can't answer that question.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you put it really well. And, again, it might feel like, oh, well, what are you guys talking about? That seems like that's pretty far down the line. Well, is it? Because again, Sadiq Bey, his contracts to be coming up. We have a couple team options on him, after, we have him through 2023, 2024. That's not that far away. We have guys like Hamidou Diallo, who we have, if he keeps playing as well as he does, he might garner a little bit more money than he did this time around. Right. So there's a lot of guys that you're going to have to make some decisions on here. And that's, again, when you look at the money that Jerami Grant's going to garner, that's the decision making you have to make. And I do kind of want to end on one last question. I want to know, because first of all, if you go to your Twitter, it's obvious, the first thing you see is a picture of you with Dwayne Casey when you guys had him in the studio. I remember that. So that interview that you guys had with Dwayne Casey is actually a funny story. That's actually how I discovered Woodward Sports. And so through that, so it's kind of like a cool, like full circle moment. And I started podcasting around like January of last year. And so for just to see a company that's young and do as awesome things as you guys do, I wanted to be a part of it. Now here I am. And, this is awesome, man. But, with that, Dwayne Casey is a polarizing figure in the Pistons fan base. You guys had Ku Khahil on the morning show this morning, and it's not really much of a secret that Ku Khahil is not the biggest Dwayne Casey fan. And meanwhile, I wrote an article on Woodward Sports, 1,300 words, that I just cranked out in like a half hour that said, like literally it said, like the title is Dwayne Casey is the perfect coach for the Detroit Pistons. So I'm kind of out there with that, but I'm curious what you think, Jeff. What are your thoughts on Dwayne Casey, and what do you think Pistons fans should feel about him?
Right now, I think people, in a way, when things aren't going very well, and you have great, players, entertaining players, you have Sadiq Bey, you have Cade Cunningham. You're like, wow, we get a joy to watch these players.
Yeah.
The easy thing to do would be to blame Dwayne Casey. I think
It always is.
that is and it's across all sports. You know this, Sean, as well as anybody watching this right now, that you look at any head coach of any sport team, if shit's going bad and you see players playing well, you're like, all right, it's on the coach. But with the Pistons situation, it's so much more different because you have guys like Cade. And Cade's a winner at heart, but these guys are trying to learn how to play real basketball, 82 games, and find a way to win. They don't have any veterans. Jeremy Grant and Kelly Olynyk, they're the veterans. So it's like, think about that. Like Kelly Olynyk's probably the veteran go-to guy.
Yeah,
on
like
this
the oldest
team.
guy on that team is either Rodney McGruder or Corey Joseph.
And can't forget Rodney. That was a crazy story when Rodney got traded and he had to come back. That was, that's what I love.
Hey, Rodney, welcome back.
and Rodney, I can't forget about Rodney. He's the OG vet. But the fact that Rodney McGruder is your guy, and it says a lot, like, about where they are as a franchise. And I'm not going to sit here and say Dwayne Casey's at fault. Now, can he be critiqued? Yes. And if any coach in the NBA can be critiqued, there's been times where I'm sitting up there and I'm like, what are you doing with this lineup, Dwayne Casey? What's going on here? Like, what is this starting lineup? What is this closing lineup? But what are you doing at half-court situations? But Cade Cunningham maybe resolves a lot of those issues. And at the end of the day, man, like, if you have good players, it's hard to mess that up, and especially in the NBA as a head coach. Like, Dwayne's good enough. He's been a coach of the year. He's if it wasn't for LeBron, the guy probably would have made the finals. Like, he had good enough teams in the past.
Listen, and again, I will make this point until the day I die. Are you telling me if Dwayne Casey is the coach of that Raptors team that went on to win the championship, that ran into all the luck that they did with the bounce, with the health issues of the teams that they ran into, like, are you telling me that Dwayne Casey is not a coach with a championship under his belt if he was the coach of that team? Because I'm sorry, if you look at Nick Nurse and Dwayne Casey and their coaching styles and their systems and the programs, like, they are running the same offense. Yep. They are doing the same thing. So if you're saying that Dwayne Casey's system doesn't work, tell that to Nick Nurse and the Toronto Raptors fans, because it seems to be working just fine.
No, I 100% agree with you. Like, Dwayne Casey, they maybe needed a new voice, whatever the situation was, and with the Toronto Raptors. It had nothing to do with, we just needed, that's all we needed was the right coach. Like, no, you got Kawhi freaking Leonard.
Exactly.
Like,
who at the time was arguably the best player in the world, which people like to conveniently forget that Kawhi Leonard got to go to Toronto and just in 1 year just have the craziest season with Kyle Lowry and all these good pieces. Oh, and Marc Gasol that they traded for. And LeBron in your conference. And a Warriors team that didn't have Kevin Durant and then lost Klay Thompson. It's like, I'm sorry, like, you just you can't say Dwayne Casey was the problem in Toronto, because he's the reason why Toronto has the program that they have right now.
No question. If Durant, I'll go even a step further. If Durant and Klay Thompson are healthy, they're winning that finals. I don't think anybody is disagreeing with that one. Like, and listen, Dwayne Casey, and I'll explain the point about how I feel on him. Dwayne, I wouldn't mind, and I love Dwayne as the coach of this current team.
Exactly.
Like, he is the, like you said, the great article about, he's the great wording. He is the perfect coach for this team. No one else. You can't tell me, especially any Pistons fan that says fire Dwayne. Okay, tell me who you're going out and getting. Like, please, I'll wait. Please explain. Yeah. Because at this point in time, who in the hell, I've always been a fan of guys like Mark Jackson, but even Mark, like, you're going to ask a guy to come into this situation and say, all right, guys, let's learn how to play basketball. No. You got guys, Cade, he's still trying to finish his first season. Sadiq having a breakout year. These guys, you still have a lot of holes. Like, you need size, you need shooting, you need more playmaking besides Cade Cunningham. So with this team, a lot of holes. Dwayne, I'm willing to wait on. I want to see Dwayne next season. Like, add more and more young, very talented players. And if you still can't win, we know the answer to that. But right now, it's too early to say we should be winning games. Maybe you'd like to see a little more, but sorry to break it to you. But the more we suck, we have a chance to get a better player. So at the end of the day, if you're going to suck. Don't do it half suck and be like, all right, let's kind of, maybe we'll win some games here and there. I could care less about this season, man. I'm focused on next season, and that's when I'm going to sit here and judge Dwayne Casey. That's what I'm worried about.
And if you didn't get the sense from watching the summer league like I remember watching their first game against the Thunder. Everyone was hyped. It was like we all thought that they're about to go run it up and get the summer league championship. Like that was like our playoffs. You know what I'm saying?
I know it was. I can't lie.
And I remember watching the first 5 minutes of that summer league, and it was an immediate realization that this was just going to be exactly like the last season. And think about how differently fans are this year compared to last year. Because last year we got mad if this team won. Like there were guys like, no, don't win. Please, Pistons blow this game. You know what I'm saying? And now this year it's like, how can't you beat the Golden State Warriors? Fire Dwayne Casey. He's the problem. Right. It's like, no, the only thing that changed was your expectations.
There you go.
So, you know, Dwayne Casey, is he the guy that's going to coach this team when we're in the finals? I have no clue. But what I do know is that for what we're at right now, because each coach in the NBA has a different skill set, right? Dwayne Casey is the best in the world at being a teacher, at being a developer, at being someone that can help players grow. And just look at all the guys, even in his, not even just Toronto, like let's throw that to a side for a second. Christian Wood, he literally said to Christian Wood when he came into the program, your next stop's Europe. So this is all on you. Like that was just an absolute flyer. Now, Christian Wood, one of the most like the hipster's favorite basketball
got the
player.
bag.
Exactly. Got the bag. Exactly. And we're like, what are we doing letting him walk away? Well, guess what? We traded it and turned it into Isaiah Stewart, who are you telling me a Pistons fan doesn't want Isaiah Stewart on their team? Are you kidding me? Look at, again, you brought up Josh Jackson. He came into Detroit in the exact same situation. Now, much more respected player after his time in Detroit. He's going to have a career in the NBA for years to come. So
exactly.
So when I here's the other thing too, Dwayne Casey came to Detroit to win now because the roster that we had around him when he started was a win now roster. He agreed with Tom Gores and with Troy Weaver that this is the way that they needed to go. And no one would have blamed him if he left and if he didn't want to be a part of it, but he chose to stay and he chose to commit to another rebuild, to building another program, to losing a lot of games and to do something that's not really fun and glamorous. Right. So the fact that he is like, I just don't get the slander, man. Like he just, I don't know. He's a high class guy, super nice guy, but also you can't look at his resume and deny the success that he's had over the years. So
no doubt. And you talk about his success and being a head coach, like as an assistant, the guy won a championship with the Mavericks. Like he's won an NBA ring as a coach, of course, assistant coach. He's won coach of the year. Like I said, he's made multiple Eastern Conference finals and ran into, you know, LeBron at the end of the day. So if you look at Dwayne's resume, it's funny. We question people's careers when they're in Detroit. Like Dwayne's doing I think a great job of, like you said, teaching guys, developing. Now with Josh Jackson, great example. Sadiq Bey looking better and better. Cade Cunningham, I think he was going to be great no matter where he went. It's Cade Cunningham. But at the end of the day, I think Dwayne, like you said, the key thing to that statement is he's the perfect coach for this situation. We're not saying he's going to be the head coach for the next 5-10 years. We don't know. But I'm taking this thing season by season. My expectations for this season, we went over it on the morning show like right before the season. He said over under 25 games. I said over. And I didn't think it'd be 30, 35. 40. I just thought, we could creep a little above 25. Now, the fact that we're at 12, 13 wins, does it surprise me? No, it doesn't. Considering, like you said, you made the point earlier, Jeremy Grant's health. It's been hard to get guys to play together consistently. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we don't have talent. I mean, we have talent, but I'm talking about all-star right now talent besides Cade Cunningham. We really don't. Like Jeremy Grant's our best, all-around player, I guess, in terms of like what he does on a nightly basis. And we're looking to trade him. We're in a rebuild. So
and also
strap your seatbelts on.
Well, and also it's also the thing of the reason why he was able to do so well at the beginning of last year was because teams didn't expect him to be doing that well. But then obviously his numbers are going to go down and he's going to struggle more when the scouting report is circled around stopping Jeremy Grant. When you go from being an unknown to a team to being the number one guy on a team's scouting report on a given night to night basis, that is a different type of game that you have to play. And that's a
Yeah.
different type of challenge you're going to be going against. So, Cade Cunningham was seeing that quite a bit at the beginning of his career. He had to adjust quite a bit because when he came in right away, he was the number one guy on the scouting report. So, that's just the reality. So, with that, I think there's a lot of things for us to be excited about. Real quick before we go, I know you're a Jabari Smith Jr. guy. I personally, dude, I salivate watching Chet Holmgren as far as now Jabari Smith. I think he has the best floor of any player that's coming into this draft class. I think he can come in and right away he can be really good. However, Chet Holmgren has the best ceiling, man. And so,
I'm not even going to argue with you. I'm not even going to argue with you. We had this conversation. Adam loves Chet. I love Chet. Honestly, the guy's incredible. He's the only player in collegiate history to average over 3 blocks, shoot 70%, I believe, at least from the 2-point, and shoot 40% from 3. So you're telling me this guy, I mean, the weight concerns me, but I think he'll figure that out. We'll see how that goes into the NBA and him adjusting to the physicality. But Chet, no doubt, and I'll always say this, and you said it perfectly. You actually took the words out of my mouth. Jabari has the highest floor, but Chet has the highest ceiling. I think if everything goes to shit, I would trust Jabari's outlook.
Yeah.
But if you're drafting and listen, you got to hit on superstars. I would love if we got Chet Holmgren. I'm not going to sit here and say his weight. If the guy can play basketball, he can play basketball.
Well,
that's all you got to figure out.
And listen, how many examples of guys do we need to look at and say enough with the weight crap? Because I understand with Chet Holmgren with a big guy, all that kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. That makes sense. However, first of all, Kevin Durant, we call him the Slim Reaper for a reason, right? Evan Mobley, who I compared to Chet Holmgren a lot. Obviously, I know their games aren't the exact same. However, 2 dynamic bigs who have guard-like ball handling skills and can protect the rim. Their weight was a question for both of them. Look how Evan Mobley's doing. He doesn't look too weak to me, does he? So Chet Holmgren,
the only sorry, finish your statement. I'll talk after.
No, I was just really quickly. I was just going to say, and just because Chet Holmgren is skinny doesn't mean he's soft. And a lot of the bigs in our league, there's really only 2 bigs that are elite that go off of muscle and power. And it's guys like Jokic and Embiid who use their bodies and get into other bigs. Otherwise, we're seeing bigs getting slimmer and slimmer as the years go by. So with that, go ahead, Jeff, real quick.
It's actually going right off your point you made about the physicality of the centers nowadays. You have, potentially nowadays, yes. Is it going to be scary when you have Chet against Joel in the post? Of course. But at the same time, Chet is 7 foot. If he can gain any weight at all, like Porzingis coming out into the league, very, very slim. Porzingis put on a little bit of weight. It's doable for a lot of guys. Now the difference, you can look at Kevin and very similar in terms of weight. Now they both play on the perimeter. I think Chet's going to utilize the post a whole lot more considering his size and people are going to throw him lobs. He's so incredibly talented. He can space the floor. I'm excited to see what he does in the NBA. But with Chet, I think honestly it's crazy. He's like a unicorn. It only really, you bring up unicorn, that word isn't thrown out a whole lot. You got Porzingis, maybe KD's one of them, and now you got Chet who can a 7-footer who can do it all, literally do it all. So I'm not opposed. I would be happy with honestly, I would say 2 players, Jabari, Chet. I'm comfortable with Paulo. I'll take it, but if I'm going top 2, it's Jabari and Chet. I'm sold on.
I'm the exact same way. And I know Cade loves Paulo. I know they have a great relationship. My one thing with Paulo is when you look at the scouting report, the number one thing that scouts say is he's not always engaged on the defensive end. And personally, especially when you're trying to build a culture in Detroit, if you go to Detroit and you're questioned on your defensive ability, but also about caring on the defensive end, to me, that's just a red flag. I want guys to come in and play both ends of the floor. Chet Holmgren and Jabari Smith Jr. do both.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's what it comes down to.
With Paulo, you talk about Dwayne Casey, regardless of who comes in this culture, like you said, you got to play defense. Cade, he's a guy. That's the reason why the Jalen Green and the Cade is the most complete player of that entire draft class, and that's the reason why the beneficial of that is he can play both sides and he fits great. Sadiq can play both sides. You have Hamidou Diallo, great perimeter defender. Isaiah Stewart. Now, can he work on his post defense? Of course. The guy's only 6'9", but at the same time, he hustles. He plays his ass off. So, like you said, I couldn't agree more. I think best 2 fits. I would go Chet 1 because we need his size. We need literally everything he entails of. Yeah. But 2, just safe pick. And one of the guys I love watching, I got to go Jabari. Jabari's
an animal, man. Like I said, I like them both a lot. And
Can't
again,
go wrong.
Yeah. And again, it's kind of another draft class where all three of those guys would be a number one pick in their own year. You know what I mean? It's kind of exactly like last year where Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham, they all are number one pick type guys coming in. And, you know, these 2 years, they're just both really deep draft classes. So, you know, again, and with Detroit, we might not get the number one pick again. And I brought up this point when I was on Big D Energy. I said, the decision might be made for us. It might just be one of those guys gets to fall in our lap. And so if that's the case, that's not a bad problem to have.
I'll take it.
I mean,
I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on, dude. This was a blast, man. I had a lot of fun, dude.
Yeah, me as well. Me as well. I love doing this, man, and especially this is my second podcast so far. I love doing these, especially with you, man. It's been entertaining to sit here and talk to you, especially when we're already developing a friendship now, and now that we are coworkers, it's been great. And I hope we can do this again one day, man.
Oh, yeah, dude, at any time, man. And yeah, after this, we're gonna be friends just fine. Yeah, we're doing great. Heck yeah, man. Let's go, man. Let's go. But yeah, man, people can follow you on Twitter at Jeff Iafrate and check him out, man. Check him out on the morning show, Monday through Friday, 8 to 10. It's always a good time. You can catch it on the Woodward Sports app, but you can also catch it on their YouTube, on Facebook. You guys even stream on Twitch, don't you? Or
we used to. I don't know if we still do. We might still do on Twitch. Yeah. I remember running the Twitch streams. I don't know exactly, but check it out anyway.
Check it out anyway. Yeah, go watch your old. We'll go watch your old stream.
Yeah.
But seriously, I want to thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time from Half Court. Be sure to subscribe.
Oh, definitely subscribe.